is Megan.
And my name is David.
And we are the Rooted Readers. And we are back with another book review. Okay, guys, we are not doing book reviews anymore. We're going to start calling them book reactions. Because I don't remember all of those technical terms from, freshman year of college. And I can't tell you what genre all these books are in. I can't tell you the structure and all the technical things. All we know is how these books make us feel, and we want to share that with anybody, whether you're a book lover or you just want to sit and see a mom and son have a good conversation. We want to invite everybody, not just our book lovers. Love our book lovers, but we just don't know all the technical terms, and we don't want to act like we do. So, book reaction of
Dear Justice. So you're probably been wondering what even is Dear Justice, because it hasn't even came out yet. It comes out in September and it is by Nic Stone. It is a sequel to Dear Martin, which was amazing. So
okay, you want to tell them a little bit about the book?
So basically, in Dear Martin, Justice is talking to Martin, aka Martin Luther King, about how he deals with racial injustice. But this time, Quan is talking to Justice about what he experiences and his story. He tells you about himself, and it's pretty good.
Okay. So let's just dive right in. What did you think what was the difference between Justice and Quan? So Quan is the main character. I think you said that. Quan is the main character in Dear Justice. What did you think about the difference between Quan and Justice?
The difference, I feel like they're pretty different because they were raised differently, and I feel like how you're raised plays a part into who you are and how you grow up.
I disagree with that. I looked at the book and thought they were raised the same and went through the same things, only that they both were given different opportunities. So, because Quan was just as smart and Justice was smart as well, but Justice got an opportunity that got him out of the situation that Quan was in. Because their situations were similar, which is why they bonded to begin with. But I think that's what people look at that all the time and say, okay, well, just because he's in a different environment, he's completely different from someone that's in another environment. I know a lot of people look at you and they're like, okay, well, he doesn't live where his dad lived, where his dad grew up. And so what could they possibly have in common? Or you and Quaylin, y'all are super cool with each other and y'all live in two different. I also thought that was kind of creepy when I first started reading the book, and it was Quaylin and Quan. I was like, oh my gosh, this is too close. This is too scary. And then the salmon eating cousin, because you're the salmon eating cousin, and Quaylin be looking at y'all like, that's what y'all eating today. So, I think that's one of those things that I think schools get wrong to begin with, because it's easy to look at a kid's situation and assume that they don't have as much to offer as Justice. Even Quan didn't think he had as much to offer. He wrote Quan. Think about it. Justice wrote Martin Luther King because he looked up to him. He thought he was a cool role model and somebody who did these amazing things. And for Quan to write to Justice, that says a lot about where he holds justice, right?
And how he thinks about himself.
And it's a reflection of how he thinks about himself also, because, and literally their biggest difference is an opportunity.
Because I feel like the reason that I thought that was because that also they were given two different opportunities, but the way that people looked at Quan and Justice, like you said, the way people look at me and Quaylin, but the way they look at Justice and Quan, Quan has these, you know what I mean?
That's because people judge based off of your circumstance. And this is in my fussing on a regular basis. I tell you all the time, because of Quaylin's work ethic, Quaylin could be a millionaire And you could grow up with all of these things that you have, and because Quaylen's worth ethic is different from yours, he can rise out of his situation, and you know, your situation can be, you can go down a different path that doesn't look like, you know, that may not be a successful one, but that work ethic is important. Even thinking about where, I mean, Justice still had to work hard, but he was put in a position where he was able to win. Even just knowing, we're not gonna give the book away, but knowing that Quan fights and claws and works super, super hard to change his predicament, his situation. I mean, you know, Justice is still in college and all these different things, but he gives himself a really good start just because he had some people that believed in him, which that's a big aspect. He had a bunch of people that believed in him, and he had the drive and the will to want to change things.
When you look at Quan, he doesn't really like none of the people that he's around really believe in him, and I feel like that's one of the reasons that they're different.
Mm-hmm.
So they have two, like basically they have two different opportunities and two different like upbringings. So one of them, like, people believe in him, but the other one they don't. So
yeah. So well, I guess it just boils down to support system. I can't think of his name, so I'm going back. What's the teacher's name?
The teacher's Doc.
I was gonna say that, but it sounded so wrong.
Doc.
Just thinking about Doc and how he was willing to kind of go that extra mile to be Quan's support system, like, that was so cool to me.
Cause I remember how like close Justice was with Doc.
Yeah.
And like it was like, man, like he can be two different people.
So is Doc
like,
the secret weapon? Like, is the secret weapon just a really good teacher? And I know you've heard plenty of my stories as from being a teacher and a counselor and all these different little things that I've done. You've heard stories where I come home and I'm telling y'all about a situation, and then it's like I will fight so hard, and then at the end of the day I pass through those neighborhoods and I'm like, dang, like I can't get them out of this, you know. But reading this book made me feel like just that support to some of my babies who are going through exactly what Justice was going through. I mean, what Quan was going through, or what Justice has gone through. Just knowing that, okay, that support can make a difference. Like, that made me feel better about the many arguments that I've had with educators, or just the constant advocating for kids, because somebody can look at their situation and lower the expectations for them.
And it makes me think about, because in the advanced readers copies, they have like a little blurb of like why they chose to write it, or like something like in the beginning. And when I read about why she wrote it, it was like she had a conversation with two kids that really weren't like Justice, and they were like, you should write a book about us, because like there's a lot of kids that don't get those exact opportunities as Justice, and they're like, I feel like they felt like that it was necessary for their.
And I like the idea of Quan being a hero. Cause I remember Camden coming to my school one time, and one of my babies was having a meltdown, and he's been through a million different things. So the moment he's having a meltdown, I see those things that he's gone through, and I don't judge how he's responding to him, because I couldn't go through half of what his story was. So I just remember him having a moment, and I remember looking at Camden and the fear in his eyes. And some of the teachers that passed by and watched me just having that conversation with him, he's very upset. And so he was getting aggressive. And I just remember the fear in Camden's eyes. I remember the fear in the teachers that passed by. And I could only think, like, one day he's not going to be in a school setting, and people are going to see him and have that fear. Not knowing everything that's going on, not knowing the potential. I mean, this little boy was intelligent, but had so many things that were just, not right. Some things that some people who just, generational cycles that have caused people to not realize the damage that they have, and then project that damage onto somebody else. So I liked that there was a kid like Quan, and Nic Stone made him a hero.
Because in the beginning, and when I read Dear Justice, and when they brought him up, I feel like I like kind of, after reading this, I kind of feel like mad at myself for thinking that. But like when in the beginning, when he goes to visit Quan, and he's like, oh, this, and then it's just like thinking like, oh, Quan is just a bad dude. But when I started reading this, I thought like, man, he's really not. And I feel like it's like, it definitely changed my perspective. Like, if I wouldn't have read that, I would continue thinking that.
But how often does America do that to us on a regular basis?
Regular.
Just assume because of one thing, or because I'm standing near one person, or I happen to be on the scene of this, or shoot, I'm visiting my dad's neighborhood, like that, oh, this has to be a bad guy. So it makes me think back to your situation in school.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a call about you slamming the door, right? So originally your teacher was upset because you slammed his door open, right? We sit down and find out the backstory and realize that there were some racist comments, some racist jokes, and just some things piled up on you, possibly being told to change your project from African American culture, and him questioning whether you've actually even experienced racism. Like, that's a lot to experience, which I didn't realize you had been experiencing that for that long. And for them to pull you into a meeting solely because you slammed the door, or you slung the door, I don't know what you did, but because you showed some type of frustration, that was the reason you were called in. And they spent so much time trying to show you how you were wrong, instead of saying, okay, those are valid feelings. Like, those are exact. I mean, we're supposed to express ourselves. Those are valid feelings for how you were made to feel. I also want to talk about Martell. What do you think about Martell?
Well, I kind of feel like he's like a superhero and a villain at the same time, because like he gives people protection. Like, he gives people weapons to protect themselves, but he's also
Gives them more.
Sells them.
Yeah.
Sells them protection. Sells them guns or weapons to protect themselves. But that's why I think he's like a superhero, but like at the same time, like he's kind of like a villain, being a part of the Black Jihad. And
so earlier when we talked about this, or when we first started reading it, you said the gang was there, and I want to know why you used that word in particular, because I don't recall seeing that in the book.
Well, in Dear Martin, Martin, that's because I don't think you read Dear Martin.
Yeah, I read Dear Martin.
Yeah, you did. So in that, you remember when Justice encountered Martell, remember? And so when he left.
But where did the word gang come from?
After he left, he called SJ, and then he said, I almost joined the gang. So that's
Justice perceived it as a gang.
So that's where I had it from.
Okay, I thought you went news story on me, because sometimes the news, they'll hear about something, like they called the Black Lives Matter movement a gang at one point. They called the Black Panthers a gang. So at first I thought you just perceived that it was a gang. When I first, it definitely has its flaws, but when first reading Dear Justice, I can't even say a love-hate relationship with Martell. I love Martell. And there might be people who eventually disagree, because Martell is he is like the OG figure. So Martell is like the OG, and like they respect him, but there's a level of, and when you said gang, it made me think about just people that I knew when growing up, and gangs, and what they what they needed. Because at the end of the day, he gave Quan something that he needed. Gave him some things that he didn't need in his life too, but he also gave him a sense of community and protection and somebody to talk to and somebody to share things with. And it wasn't in the best environment, but he gave him something that he wasn't given at home. And I think that's where a lot of people, when they look at gangs and they look at, you know, the cliques in the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff, like, you know, daddy loves his neighborhood. And I remember the very first time my dad took me to daddy's neighborhood and got home, and he was just like, I cannot believe this is where you went and found somebody. It was like seeing where your dad came from made Papa just go like, forget whatever she like about him, forget if he might be intelligent, might not be intelligent, he lives over there. So there's absolutely no good that can come out of there, right? So seeing, like, when you called it a gang, which I forgot that Justice called it a gang, it made me consider just how just organizations in general can be perceived as that when they are created in a completely different manner. You know, he had a picture of my boy. I just wrote, Huey P. Newton in the house, and I was just like,
Now I can kind of like compare the Black Panther Party and the Black Jihad as like a modern version of the Black Panther.
Well, I don't think it was a modern version. I think my perception, like, there are definitely some flaws in Martell's in his system and his organization, but he's just doing what a lot of us are doing, which is there are so many generational cycles, like so many. You and I talk about that all the time. Like, I'm always like, y'all are not gonna be like my sisters, y'all are not gonna be like, you know, whatever.
I'm not really familiar with the term
what?
Generational cycles.
Oh, generational cycles. So generational cycles, to me, and I'm not Webster, but to me, they're things that have happened for so long that we just do them because that's what we do. You remember how I told you about how, like, I used to come in the room and, like, when I was younger, I played with my cousins and play around, whatever. And then once we got older, well, while we were playing around, there was like some beef with my mom and my aunt, right? But then once we got older, it started to be like, okay, they beef, so me and my cousins are supposed to beef with each other, right? Or similar to, like, with a lot of my kids in those neighborhoods, the only way they've seen someone make a decent amount of money is by selling drugs, is by, you know, by doing things illegally. So if you look at a Martell, it's like, oh, like, it's not drugs, you know, like, it's, and sometimes people can look at those things and say, like, well, they should just fix it, they should just all, you know, become successful and all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's hard if you haven't seen, if your idea or what you're exposed to as success is not what everybody else has been exposed to.
And so here's a question that I feel like I don't know. So here's a question. Would you have joined, if you were Quan, would you have joined the gang? Well, not the gang, but will you have joined the Black Jihad?
I can't imagine myself in a situation. Like, that's why when I see the Yahoo comments and when I see people judging people that they consider young thugs and all this kind of stuff, like, I've heard these stories, and I've seen the toughest, roughest kid in my office crying and saying, okay, if I stop selling these drugs, then how my mama supposed to eat? How are we supposed to pay for rent? If my uncle's so bad, why he take care of everybody else with his drug money, right? So I can't personally put myself in a situation because I have never been in a situation where I don't know where my next meal is gonna come from.
So what do you tell them though?
I try to expose them like I do y'all. I try to expose them to different options. I try to tell them to be that change, try to be somebody that does something different. But at the end of the day, like, I, the little sacks of food that I sign them up for every day, and all of like that only goes so far. And so unless I'm willing to, like, my goal, my true goal in life is to create a program where we do expose kids to their other options and show them that there are other things. But right now, if I'm gonna say y'all have to live in this apartment, y'all have to go to these certain schools, and this is the environment you're in, I can't fault them for choosing the options that they've been given, because they don't see a lot of good options, and they see those generational cycles of options. So that's one of those things where I don't ever try to put myself in those situations. I let kids know I've never seen my mom beaten by my dad, right? Like I've never had to stand outside and ask for money. Like those are things that I've never experienced. So I can't say where your mind goes or what type of planning you feel you have to do when in those types of situations. So my biggest thing is like what I do to y'all. Like I tell anybody any day that we are the stereotype. Had a baby at 19, pregnant freshman year. My goal was to say, okay, let me show him something different. Like I had to show you something different. That's why, we live in a different place and we go different places that most people laugh like, oh, y'all going to the museum. I have to show y'all something different so y'all can see some options. But if I sit in the same neighborhood all day long, I don't really go outside of that, and this is all I see, what else am I supposed to strive to be? So I like that Quan is a hero. I really, I've listened to Nic Stone talk about this book. And when I first heard her talking about it, I'm like, yes, people are going to see my babies in a different light. And it's going to make educators want to stop lowering expectations and stop feeling like because a kid is in a certain situation that they can only achieve a certain thing, or I don't have to pour as much into them because their parents don't care anyway, or all these different things that educators, who are supposed to be our superheroes, that they think. And so the more I read, I was like, dang, like what he had is the reason that he's able to be the hero in the book. The support system, what I've basically been teased about and considered irritating for years, was something that changed his entire perspective, his entire work ethic, was having a support system, having people that truly cared. And I would hope that a teacher could pick this up, a principal could pick this up and look at this and say, well, if we just care about them and then to start teaching them, then maybe we'll get some different predictions. And it's that simple. It's that simple. It's as simple as Doc gave him respect. Doc gave him an education. His counselor was like digging deep and actually listening to his feelings and his emotions, and that doesn't happen on a school campus.
And I'm gonna tell you this right now, this is the first book that I read the acknowledgments, and the reason that I brought this up is because she was talking about how she, like, because I was like, this can't be fiction. That's one of the things that I read. But she was like, one of the reasons that it's fiction is because he probably wouldn't have got all of that support. And plus, in the state of Georgia, some information. In the state of Georgia, only immediate family members can go to go visit them. So it was kind of like, dang.
So technically they don't even have, and that's why I say when I actually wrote her an email not too long ago, once I finished the book, and I literally felt like when I first started reading this, I read like the first page and I was like, nope, too close. Like I've never read a fiction book where I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to finish this one. Only because we had to do this video, because I started reading and my eyes, like, it was like first chapter, like my eyes teared up, and I was just like, Nic Stone has been hiding in my closet in my office, and I feel like she also interviewed some of my friends and some of like our relatives or something. Like, she has gotten like some type of tea somewhere from all of these things that I've listened to. And it also, and that's, Nic Stone is from Atlanta, I'm from Houston, and it just made you realize like this is like a universal issue. Like, people caring about black boys and giving them everything possible that a school is supposed to give them is rare. Like, that's something that, like, this was a fairy tale. Like, it's something, the situation, all the things that he experienced were absolutely normal, unfortunately. But the fact that the fiction part about it was, on a regular basis, black kids don't get this amount of support. And this is, I mean, you already know I've come home plenty of times, and it's like, that people, once a kid has done something, because you said that too, you said something about him going to jail at 13 when we argued about this earlier. You were like, well, he went to jail at 13, so he wasn't the same as Justice. I'm like, and I wanted to say it at that moment, but I didn't. But there are so many people who came from the same areas as your dad, and they didn't, because dad didn't go to jail. He had a different route. It took him down a different path. And it wasn't that people, like, it wasn't that, he was just this good kid at all. That he was just this good kid, but there were opportunities that were given to him. And he's talked about this plenty of times. People from churches that came and people from camps that came and gave him opportunities that made him want different things. Just speaking of dad, what, like, when I read this, I think of, like, it's almost like Dad's story and Dave's story, right? Because you young mom, but you were able to go to nice schools and similar to Justice, but Dad was actually didn't have that type of environment. Like, just thinking about, like, did you understand Dad a little bit more after reading this book?
Well, it definitely made me understand him more, because, like, whenever Dad takes me to, like, sometimes I'll go get a haircut. It'll just be me and him, and he'll like take me to his old neighborhood after I get a haircut most of the time. And I remember, like, I like have fun there sometimes. Like, I'll play basketball with, like, the kid, like his friends' kids, and I like have fun. But I never, like, really understood how it is living there. Like, so most of the time I just sit in the car sometimes and I'm just, like, doing crazy stuff on my phone or something. But I've never, like, understood, like, this is where he lived and it wasn't anything like this. So,
well, it's not that it's not anything like this. It's like, when you're sitting in the car and you know that from here I go home, you have a different perception than when you live here and you don't, maybe some of your relatives don't have a car, or this is the place that, in Dad's situation, this is the place where you were shot at, or this is the place that you've seen people die in. Like, this is the place where people don't have a lot of money, and y'all are helping each other out and coming together to make sure that y'all eat that day or something. Like, you don't get to see all of that when you just pull in and okay, this is cool, play at the park, I get to leave in a second,
Also, it kind of made me understand more, because, like, I recently read a book, And the Gangs, because Dad was in a gang, and I never, like, really understood, because all I thought it was like bad stuff. I thought it was like being in a gang means that, like, you're bad and trying to look cool. But when I look at it, it kind of changes my perspective on that. And you, like, earlier you said, like, he was in the gang sometime, like, he was in the gang to be, like, something to be a part of.
Like that was there. I mean, it's not the perfect support system, but sometimes that's the only support system they get. I mean, luckily Quan had Doc and Justice and all the lawyers and everything, but think about the other guys that were in that organization. Think about how they were like, they didn't have a Justice, they didn't have a Quan, all they had was Martell. So you gotta consider, I mean, I do not condone it, but at the same time I feel like I can't judge their choice because they don't have a lot of choices. So recommendations. Like, who would you recommend this book to?
Oh my god. I would definitely recommend it to I would recommend it to everybody, but mostly it's not even like a grade category. I feel like all types of people could not benefit from it, but learn from it. And I think middle grade and different grades, mature because I read different books that sometimes aren't even for me, but I think it's the way that you look at it.
Yeah.
Most books.
I wish that I could say teachers. I wish I could just proudly say I would recommend this to teachers.
Well,
But this has been, I feel like there are a million movies, there are a million books and everything that show if we support Black kids and not judge them, then they'll be successful. If we actually act like we care about them and don't actually just try to force our knowledge or our authority on them, then they might actually retain the information that we're giving them. So I wish that it came like a magic button and it would just change their perceptions the moment they received it.
But if you give it to them right now, like you said, all of the media and all of the stuff, all of the stuff that you...
I think because of what I've experienced, my goal would be to put this in the hands of every Quan that I know. And because I think it tells the story of, even if you're a Quan, no matter what you've seen, what you've done, it's possible to be successful after experiencing a bad neighborhood, domestic violence, being in a gang, being in jail. It's possible to actually grow from that. There are people out there that will support you if you are put in those positions where you are willing to accept the support. Because I feel like there are so many people who are not friends to our Black boys that they are hesitant. And I've experienced this as a counselor. They're hesitant to be like, what you want? Why are you trying to help me? And so, because it happens so rare. So my goal is gonna be to just buy as many of these and find all my parents and all my babies that this book reminded me that I thought about while reading about Quan's story, and say, look, dude, somebody just like you, somebody went through the things that you went through, didn't fall, they didn't fail.
And I feel like this book would I feel like I could recommend this book to all of the not Quans, all of the people that aren't like Quans, so they can see that this is
because I love that you read it, because I feel like because you are often the justice of the world, where you're praised and I feel like being in that light sometimes, when there is a situation where you are treated like just any old regular Black boy on the street, or when you are discriminated against, it's oh my gosh, Mom, to me, it happened to me. And it's I want you to understand that we are pouring this intelligence, we are pouring this exposure, we're doing all of this for you, but at any part of the day, any store we walk into, you could be looked at as a pawn, because people don't realize what you have in you, because some people look at only the outside. So as you guys notice, because this video I feel like we've been recording for a very long time. lots of conversations that can come out of this. We can't wait. I cannot wait to purchase like 15 copies and go over to Fallbrook and pass them out to my babies. And I love that the hero and the heroes in this book are not your typical heroes. I like that they don't look the same, that they don't have the same stories, and you know that they've made mistakes and have figured out how to correct them. And look, y'all have to wait, but September, not too far along.
Yeah.
September, please go pick up a copy of this book.
Definitely.
Educators that do read it, open your mind, open your heart, and try to see the babies that look like this in your class, and just try out that support system and see if you can make a difference the way that all these heroes in this book have.
We are the Rooted
Readers signing
signing out.